We live in a time of a near endless supply of entertainment. Whether it's games, movies, or TV, there's just so much content to consume. That, of course, also applies to media that uses animation as a medium. But a lot more often than not, the quality of what is being given to us is there for one purpose and one purpose only: money. Studios who produce animated features or TV shows often don't care about what they're pushing out, as long as it's bringing in ludicrous amounts of cash to line the pockets of the suits who run said studios. Illumination! This is especially evident in animated features, and as someone who has been in the animation industry for about 6 years, I of course love watching anything to do with animation, especially movies. But as time went on, watching films from some of my favorite animation studios had grown to be a chore instead of something I enjoy. That was until December 14th, 2018, when Sony's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse released. It shook the animation industry and even the average moviegoer to the core. It was a jumpstart the long stagnant industry needed to reinvigorate the passion of animation. We could see the love and care that was poured into the movie. Every frame could be a piece of art itself, and the story was meaningful. It reminded myself and others what animation was to be used for. But how do we get to this point? And as someone in the industry, why do I think we are heading into a new golden age for animated movies? Well, let's break it down, starting with... For years now, the animation industry has been barreling towards a direction where most movies started to all look the same. This wasn't necessarily the case for 2D films, and even 3D films at first. But as time went on, everything visually started to kind of look identical. And I think countless people have pointed it out, but they haven't really given a reason as to why everything looks the same. Well, lucky for you, because I have the answers. The first being soft, plasticky, or doughy characters, and the other being realism. And you might be thinking, well, the first one makes sense, but how can something that is animated, which is clearly not real, have a problem with the aspect of realism being prevalent? Well, it's actually way more common than you would think. It all started with the classic, Pixar's Toy Story. It was the first ever fully 3D animated, computer-generated movie. At this point, Pixar didn't have the technology on how to get human characters to not look, frankly, well, terrifying. But that didn't matter because the toys looked like toys, and that alone was a monumental accomplishment. Soon after that, we got Monsters, Inc., another huge step in animation, showing for the first time ever simulated hair and fur. After that, boom, we have another big milestone with Finding Nemo, which showed us realistic-looking CG water. Slowly but surely, the industry was showing what it could do. We could mimic anything that we could see in real life and apply it to these self-contained stories with fun characters beyond our imagination. But, as time went on, we slowly started to dial in the tech needed to replicate more realistic-looking set pieces, characters, and environments. The huge leaps and bounds that the industry was experiencing before were starting to become way smaller. It wasn't long before every animated film had caught up to how realistic it could be. Don't believe me? Look at this. Or this. Or this. Stylistically, they might look different, but on closer inspection, a lot of the characters have a similar look. But more importantly, everything is lit or rendered to be realistic. From the way light catches off buildings, or how the actual environment looks, or the way the cloth behaves. In doing this, even unintentionally, it kind of took away from the magic of animation itself. But I'm not saying that having realism in animation is bad, since some stories like Soul benefit from it due to the story it's trying to tell. And this leads into another big problem we tend to see, which is because the industry has started to amalgamate into one style mostly, big studios use that as a way to slap an animated movie template onto any story and bring in money for the sake of it being animated. Don't get me wrong, there's been some fantastic movies in the past 2 decades that I don't think have this problem. But it didn't matter because the damage that was being done was outweighing the art that was being produced. For example, a movie that doesn't use animation to its strengths at all is Illumination's Sing. Its story has literally 0 reasons for these characters to be animals. Their entire world is built just like ours as humans, there's no cities built to house the different kinds of animals, and the plot doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they are all animals. The film probably wouldn't be much different if they were humans, and god does it look bland. I'm not trying to dunk on anyone who likes this movie, but as far as using the medium of animation goes, it falls flat. On the other hand, we have Disney's Zootopia, a story that could not be told if it wasn't in animation. Huge, sprawling cityscapes that the different animals would live in show us a believable world for these characters, while the story itself centers around animals and nature at its essence. Not every movie, of course, needs to be profound or incredibly original. I just feel like when you have a medium like animation that has no limits, why settle for something so mundane? It's become the cookie-cutter template style for a movie to make money by appealing to children. Once again, there's nothing wrong with appealing to a younger demographic, but when you dilute an art medium to look exactly the same for the sake of making money, then the general public begins to also see it as a fact. Studios started using the new technology to create an easily digestible template that most of the time was being used as a crutch to put minimal effort into the stories they were telling. So what we get is a shiny movie with realistic everything and crappy characters and a story that no one asked for. And because this happened for so long, people ended up thinking that perhaps animation is just for children, because that's all they are being shown. Thank goodness for Spider-Verse.
2,000 on thermometers, 2,000 surrounding us. Travel 2,000 kilometers to hang out with us. What's up, danger?
I'm not the first to say it, and I won't be the last, but Into the Spider-Verse relit the passion of animated features. It did everything right, from its flashy visual style mimicking a comic book, to the lower frame rate, especially during action scenes, to let the bright colors and characters have time to breathe. This gives animators the ability to make every frame be something intentional, and really push the expression and arcs. It had a touching story to match, and an awesome score as well. We could see the love in every bit of the movie, and it made viewing it just that more endearing. There have been some great stories told before, but this was something different entirely. Everything came together to form a movie that transcended any other animated feature in a long time. For me, personally, it made me fall back in love with animation as a medium. It made me proud to work in the same industry. Spider-Verse took a much-needed first step forward into uncharted territory. It showed other studios that there was praise in trying something new and not always using the cookie-cutter mold. Putting our foot forward and taking the first step in anything is monumental, but the opportunity that first step gives is squandered if we don't take that second step. But lucky for us animation fans, the opportunity Spider-Verse gave was not wasted, and was instead taken full advantage of with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Unlike Spider-Verse, I would argue that The Last Wish is inherently a kids' film. We have all the staples of a kids' film: fuzzy, big-eyed characters that love to tell jokes, and bright colors everywhere, you get the gist. But this is what makes The Last Wish such an important second step in moving animation forward. We have the template of a children's film slapped onto Puss in Boots, but it doesn't fall into any of the pitfalls that a cookie-cutter movie generally would. The characters have emotional highs and lows, they grow from their mistakes, there's imposing antagonists that can tell jokes but also be extremely intimidating, and at its core, it's a movie that has a message that it wants to tell. A message about mortality, and what it means to truly value life, friendship, family, mental health, and accepting and owning the fact that you made mistakes. And it's not just the story and characters. Just like Spider-Verse, The Last Wish uses its story and setting as a way to inform its visual style. The artists know that fairy tales originate in books, so boom, we are hit with some outstanding and gorgeous art direction that covers the world in an aesthetic with saturated colors akin to a painting or a children's book art style. We have lower frame rate during action scenes, once again to really give the animators room to play with posing. The opening fight with the giant is a perfect example of this. We have amazing art direction. The texturing and surfacing design made it look like they are falling off the object, as if whoever are coloring it in missed the outline. It's just mwah. The lighting keys for the movie are phenomenal, and you really get to appreciate the range of colors and tones we get throughout the film. We have stylized fur layered on, 2D effects, and incredible camera work. Like, just look at this, and tell me this doesn't look good. You can't. And it's not just the dynamic shots that look good. Even the still shots are composed and framed super well. And as I said before, the story didn't slouch either, and tackled themes of mortality, friendship, family, self-worth, and more. This movie does not pull its punches. But most importantly of all, it uses the medium to its greatest strengths and pushes beyond animation studios' comfort and obsession of realism, just like Spider-Verse did. It truly laid the groundwork for animated movies to let loose and truly go beyond anything we've ever seen, and it feels like we are once again experiencing an evolution of animation as a medium. Without Spider-Verse proving to everyone that animation could still go further, and without The Last Wish following it up by showing the world that children's films weren't exempt from being emotionally in-depth and also innovative, I think my passion for the animation industry would have been completely diminished. We are headed into a new era for this medium, and I for one can't wait to see what the future holds.